Welcome to our podcast. Today, we explore the story, The Evil Mansion of Ikoyi, written by Nice Scar Media.
Okay, so get this right. Today, we're diving into this super creepy tale about a mansion in Lagos. It's not just any mansion, it's supposed to be seriously haunted.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're talking excerpts from The Evil Mansion of Ikoyi, Lagos. It'll definitely make you think twice about those times you ignored your gut feeling.
I can imagine.
It really makes you question, like, what's real, you know?
Yeah, how do we know what to believe, especially when it comes to stuff we can't explain?
Right, and it all starts in this crazy expensive neighborhood. Like, imagine the wealthiest part of Lagos.
Okay.
Ikoyi, it's called. Huge estates, big gates, you know. You can practically smell the money.
It's fancy.
But right there, in the middle of all this wealth, there's this old colonial mansion. And get this, it's got a dark secret.
I knew there had to be a twist.
You know how sometimes a place just gives you the creeps? Like, even if it's beautiful, there's this underlying sense of unease.
Totally. Like those old houses with all the history soaked into the walls. Sometimes it feels less like history and more like, well, something else.
Exactly. And this mansion, it's got that vibe in spades.
Probably doesn't help that it's on the market for a crazy low price.
You know what they say? If it seems too good to be true.
Right.
And that's exactly what draws in our main character, this guy named Jonas Dagogo.
Jonas Dagogo.
He's a psychology professor, just moved to Lagos from the States, super into logic and reason, you know, it's all about the facts.
The skeptic.
Oh yeah, big time. So when people start telling him about the mansion's past, all the rumors of curses and ghosts, he just laughs it off, thinks it's all just superstitious nonsense.
So basically he's walking right into the lion's den. Classic horror movie trope.
Exactly. But isn't that kind of how we are sometimes? We try to explain away things that scare us.
Oh, totally. It's like if we can rationalize it, then it can't hurt us.
Right. Denial is a powerful thing.
For sure.
So Jonas, he starts renovating this mansion, right? Wants to turn it into this picture-perfect family home. His wife, Betty, and their 3 kids, Alex, Ben, and little Sonia, they all come over from the States, excited for this fresh start. And at first, everything seems perfect.
Of course it does. That's how these stories always go.
Right, but then things start to get, well, weird.
Weird how, like, full-on ghost appearances or just, like, a creepy vibe.
It starts subtle. Like, you know that feeling when a door is left open and you could swear you just closed it? Or when a room is freezing cold even though the heating's on?
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to get the creeps just thinking about it.
Right. It's like the house is testing them, playing with their minds a little.
I'd be freaking out already.
Oh, me too.
But I guess that's the point, right?
Yeah, it's that slow build that really gets under your skin.
Totally.
And then it starts to escalate. Betty hears footsteps outside her bedroom at night. Alex swears he sees shadows moving in his room. And little Sonia starts talking to imaginary friends in the garden.
Oh no, not the kids.
Yeah.
That's when it always gets extra creepy.
Totally.
Like kids are somehow more open to seeing things, you know?
It's like their imaginations haven't been, like, dulled by adulthood yet, you know? They still see the magic, but in this case, it's the scary kind.
Right. And it makes their experiences even more unsettling because you don't know if they're really seeing something or if it's just their imagination running wild.
Jonas, of course, he's still trying to be Mr. Rational, but even he's starting to crack under the pressure.
So even Mr. Logic and Reason is starting to doubt himself. I wonder what was his breaking point.
Well, there's this scene where he becomes obsessed with the basement.
Oh, the basement. Never a good sign in these stories.
Right. It's this dark, untouched space that he hasn't gotten around to renovating yet, and he gets convinced that whatever's happening in the house, the ansel lies down there.
Like he's trying to bury something down there, literally and figuratively.
That's a good point.
Basements are always kind of symbolic, you know?
Yeah, like they represent the hidden parts of ourselves.
The things we don't want to face.
Exactly. And in this case, it's Betty who ends up exploring the basement.
Oh no.
She finds it super oppressive, like the air is heavy with this weird metallic scent, and there are these symbols etched into the wall.
Could be symbols.
Yeah, totally unsettling. It's like she's crossed the line, disturbed something that shouldn't have been disturbed.
And I bet that's when things really start to go south.
You got it. The mansion doesn't like being messed with.
What happens?
Well, the whispers get louder, objects start flying around the house, and there's this chilling laughter, like deep and guttural, echoing through the halls.
Oh my God.
It's like the house itself has become an entity, something malevolent and powerful.
The house is alive.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And Jonas, he's completely losing it. He's hearing voices, seeing things. He tells Betty, we have to run, but it might be too late.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
And what's with the metallic smell? Any theories on that?
Well, it's not explicitly explained in this part,
Okay.
but it definitely adds to the creepy atmosphere.
It's like a sensory warning. Something bad happened down there.
Right.
I wonder if it's blood.
Ooh. That's a chilling thought.
Maybe we'll find out in part 2.
Yeah. Last we left off, Jonas was being dragged into that basement.
Yeah.
By, like, some unseen force.
Just thinking about it gives me chills. You're all alone in your house, you hear a commotion, and then silence.
Yeah, it's like everything goes quiet, and you know something truly awful has happened, but you don't know what.
And then you said they found him down there, unresponsive.
Yeah, it says they found him in the basement, just like totally catatonic, eyes wide open, staring into space.
Oh gosh, like he saw something so terrifying it like broke his mind.
Yeah, seriously. It makes you think, like, what could possibly be that scary?
It's kind of like that saying, you can't unsee something. Maybe for him it's you can't unexperience something.
Wow. Yeah, that's deep.
He eventually wakes up in the hospital, but he won't talk about what happened. Not a word.
That's so creepy. Like, what could be so bad that you can't even speak about it?
It's almost like whatever he saw, it was beyond language.
Right. Like, how do you even begin to describe something that shatters your entire understanding of reality?
Right. And it wasn't just him. Think about what his family went through.
I can't even imagine.
They were just kids. To witness something like that, it must have been traumatizing.
You said they left Legos, right?
Yeah, the whole family packed up and left. Left the mansion behind, left everything behind.
It makes you wonder, like, how do you even begin to rebuild your life after something like that?
Right. Like, how do you go back to normal when normal has been completely redefined?
Yeah, it makes you realize that sometimes there are things in this world that just can't be explained.
Totally. And maybe that's what makes this story so scary. It reminds us that we're not always in control. That there are forces out there that we don't understand.
And those forces can find us anywhere, even in the places we think are safe, like our home.
And that's the truly scary part, right? It's like the idea of a home being violated.
Yeah. It makes you want to leave all the lights on at night. And the story doesn't end there. The mansion, it's still standing.
Oh no.
Empty, waiting, like some kind of predator lurking in the shadows.
Oh, that's a scary thought. It's almost like the house itself is a character. A villain.
Yeah, like it's hungry for more. I don't know about you, but the way the author described the mansion, like with all those sensory details.
Yeah, the coldness, the metallic smell.
Right. It's like you're right there with the family, feeling their terror.
Yeah, you can practically feel the darkness closing in.
It's so effective.
It really gets under your skin.
It's not just about the ghosts or the supernatural stuff, you know. It's about the psychological aspect.
Yeah.
The way fear can slowly consume you, drive you to the edge of sanity.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's what makes it so relatable. We've all felt fear. We've all experienced anxiety. It's a universal human experience.
Right.
And the story shows us how easily those feelings can be amplified, how quickly they can spiral out of control when we're confronted with something we can't explain.
It makes you wonder, like, how would you react in that situation? Would you stay and fight?
Or would you run? Or would you just, like, completely lose it? I think we'd like to believe we're rational, that we wouldn't fall for those superstitions and things.
But this story challenges that, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, at what point would your own logic crumble? What would it take for you to believe in the unbelievable?
That's a really good question.
And that's something we'll be discussing right after the break. Like, what are the cultural and psychological themes that this story brings up? So we've been talking about this seriously creepy mansion, and honestly, it's got me thinking about all sorts of things. Like, what would I do if I were in that family's shoes?
Yeah, it's one of those stories that just sticks with you, isn't it? You keep replaying it in your head.
Totally. I think it's because it taps into those fears we all have, like the fear of the unknown, losing control. What if we lose our minds, right?
Exactly. And those fears, they're like universal, aren't they? It doesn't matter where you come from or what you believe. Those primal fears, we all have them.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that this story takes place in Lagos, Nigeria, right, where you've got these traditional beliefs mixed in with modern life.
Right.
And I was wondering, like, do you think the setting adds another layer to the story?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the story is steeped in the cultural context. Think about it. The locals are warning Jonas about this mansion,
Right.
saying it's cursed.
Yeah.
And his first reaction is to just dismiss it all as superstition.
He's like, oh, come on, that's just folklore.
Exactly. And it really highlights the clash between different worldviews, like different ways of understanding things that we can't explain.
Yeah, like Jonas, he's got this Western education, very scientific mindset, and the locals, they have their own beliefs and traditions.
Right. And the story doesn't tell us who's right. It leaves us to sort of grapple with those different perspectives and consider the limitations of both, really. It makes you wonder, would you have listened to those warnings if you were him?
I don't know, it's tough. It makes you think about your own biases. Like, what are we willing to believe? Especially when it comes to stuff that challenges our understanding of how the world works.
And that's where it gets really fascinating, right? The nature of belief itself. What do we choose to believe and why? And what happens when something comes along and just shakes those beliefs to the core, when we're faced with something that we just can't explain?
Yeah, like when Betty goes down into the basement, right?
Yes.
It's like she crossed a line, disturbed something that should have been left alone.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And the mansion, it's like it retaliates.
It gets so much worse. Like almost as if the house itself is angry.
It becomes this force, this entity, like it's almost like a character in the story, the house itself.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it makes you think about how we project our own fears onto places. Like, think about how creepy an old abandoned building can feel, even if there's no logical reason for it.
Right. And it's our own imaginations, right? Like we fill in the blanks with our own anxieties and fears.
And that's what makes this story so effective. It messes with our heads, like what's real, what's not, is it supernatural? Is it all in their minds?
It blurs those lines.
Yeah.
And it leaves us with this uneasy feeling, like how much control do we actually have?
Right. The whole idea of home being a safe place, that gets totally flipped on its head in the story.
Yeah, they came to this mansion wanting to create this happy family home.
A fresh start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it turned into a nightmare. It's like, what happens when the place that's supposed to protect you becomes the source of your terror?
It's like the ultimate betrayal, isn't it?
Totally. And in the end, they have to run. They leave everything behind.
Their home, their dreams, their sense of peace, it's like their whole world has been shattered. And it just shows how deep those wounds can go.
Right. Some things you just can't come back from. And I think that's what stays with you, that lingering sense of unease. It makes you question everything you thought you knew.
Yeah. About the world, about belief, about the things that might be lurking just outside of our understanding. It makes you think, what if there's more to reality than we can see?
What if we're not at the top of the food chain?
Right. On that note, we'll leave you to ponder the mysteries that remain hidden in the shadows.
The things that go bump in the night.
Exactly. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the unsettling world of the evil mansion of Ikoyi, Lagos.